Hello and welcome. Today we're going to dig into a really powerful and multi-layered argument from the Quran, specifically from Surah Al-An'ām. It's just fascinating because it shows how the scripture takes on the very denial of its own existence, of its own divine origin. So let's dive right in.
So, the whole thing kicks off with this incredibly absolute claim made by those who disbelieved. I mean, think about that. This isn't just a little bit of doubt or skepticism. It's a complete and total rejection of the entire idea of divine guidance. It's basically a statement that says, God has left us all completely in the dark. And it's this huge challenge that the Quran is about to just dismantle, piece by piece.
Okay, so how does the Quran even respond to something like that? Well, it doesn't just lash out. It unfolds in this really methodical four-step rebuttal. Let's take a look at the very first step, which pushes back directly against this idea of total denial.
What's so brilliant about this approach is how it begins. Instead of making some new claim out of thin air, it points to a history that everybody already shared. It essentially asks, okay, if God never revealed anything, then what about the scripture that Moses brought? This, of course, is referring to the Torah, a book of light and guidance that was already known to the people of the time. The argument is grounded not in something new, but in a history they couldn't just ignore.
And right here, the verse gets even more sophisticated, because it's actually speaking to two different groups at the same time. On one hand, it's addressing the Quraysh of Makkah for their blanket, nothing was ever revealed denial. But it's also speaking to some of the people of the book for a different kind of rejection. Not a total denial, but a selective one, where they would conceal parts of their own scripture to fit their agenda.
The verse uses this very specific, very powerful word for this, karatis. It literally means parchments or loose papers. The image it creates is just wow. It's like they've taken a sacred bound book and just ripped it apart into a binder of loose-leaf pages. It lets them show the parts they like, the convenient bits, and hide the parts that challenge them. It's a really sharp critique of how people can fragment divine truth to serve themselves.
So after deconstructing the denial by pointing to the past, the argument makes a pivot. It moves to the present, and it introduces its own counter-evidence, the Quran itself, which is presented as a direct continuation of that exact same divine guidance.
So what is this book? The verse lays out three core things about it. First, it's Mubarak. It's a blessed book, full of goodness. Second, and this is absolutely crucial for the argument, it confirms what came before it. The Torah, the Gospel, it's not some alien message. It's part of a continuous stream of revelation. And third, its purpose is to be a warning, first to the mother of cities, that's Makkah, the center of Arabia, and from there to everyone else around it.
Then the verse makes this really interesting connection. It says that the people who truly believe in the hereafter, who really believe in a future where we are held accountable, are the ones who also believe in this revelation. And just as important, they're the ones who are consistent in their prayers. It ties faith in the unseen future to real, concrete, disciplined action in the here and now.
Okay, now the tone of the argument shifts. It gets a lot more intense. We've moved from rebuttal and evidence to a direct and pretty stark warning. This next part is aimed at those who don't just deny revelation, but who go a step further and actively make up lies about God.
The verse calls out three of the greatest possible injustices. First, just inventing a lie and attributing it to God. Second, saying, I have received inspiration when you absolutely have not. And this was a real issue with false prophets at the time. And third, that kind of arrogant mockery from poets who would hear the Quran and boast, oh, please, I can come up with something just like that. The verse condemns all three as the height of arrogance.
And the consequence for that arrogance, wow. It's laid out in this truly chilling scene. The verse paints this picture of the wrongdoers in their final moments, the agony of death, and the angels are right there, stretching out their hands and commanding them, discharge your souls. It's this moment of terrifying payback, where they're told that their punishment of humiliation is for the very lies they spoke and for the pride they showed against God's signs.
This brings us to the fourth and final act of this incredible argument. So, after refuting the denial, presenting the evidence, and warning the liars, the Quran delivers the ultimate conclusion, the reality of Judgment Day, a day when every single worldly illusion is finally stripped away.
And the contrast it draws is just so stark. On earth, we rely on our wealth, our connections, our status, our allies for protection and power. But on that day, God says all of that is gone. Everything you were given in life, you left it behind. And those allies, those intercessors you were counting on, they're nowhere to be found.
And you are left just one, alone, exactly as you were when you were first created. The verse forces you to confront this ultimate, unavoidable solitude of our accountability before God.
This final scene just demolishes the entire foundation of shirk, the act of associating partners with God. All those false protectors, whether they were idols or saints or powerful tribal leaders, they've all vanished. The verse says the bonds between you and them have been completely severed, and everything you used to claim as your own has disappeared.
So let's just recap this amazing and powerful argument. It starts by showing that denying revelation is just illogical because of known history. Then, it presents the Quran as a blessed continuation of that very same history. It warns that making up lies about God leads to a humiliating end. And finally, it concludes with the ultimate truth. On Judgment Day, we stand alone, and all of our worldly illusions just vanish.
And that really brings us to a final personal thought. The verse makes it so clear that on that day, all the things we rely on for our security, other than God Himself, will prove to be nothing but illusions. And it's a powerful invitation, I think, for us to ask ourselves, what are the illusions of power, or wealth, or status that we might be holding on to today?